Hi, my name is Maria and welcome to my channel MH Books. And as it's a few days away from St. Patrick's weekend, and I know that there's an Irish readathon going on this month at the moment anyway, I thought I'd just go through my shelves and look at some of the books I read that are by Irish authors. And I just selected 10 and I'm going to show them in no particular order, but these are just some of the books that I liked, and they're from various different genres as well, just so there's a wide reading choice, just in case somebody was looking for an Irish book to read this weekend. Right, so I might as well just start because we don't need me talking too long. As per usual, the books are right behind me here. The first one is one of the more famous ones, Dracula by Bram Stoker, but this is a beautiful edition. I always go on about how beautiful my editions are, but that one is a gorgeous edition. If you don't know who Dracula is, you don't know anything about vampires, but if you're in the mood for a classic, don't forget that Bram Stoker was Irish. He was a patent clerk in Dublin. If you're in the mood for more contemporary modern literature, Enright is the Nobel Laureate of Literature from Ireland from a few years ago, and she's written a few more family stories. The Gathering is one of the more famous ones. So yeah, that's the one that won the Man Booker. I couldn't remember if it was that though. The Green Road won the Man Booker. But those are like crime genres, but don't need a particularly good mystery, but more bent towards literary fiction. Tana French with her Dublin Murder Squad series, and this one, which is a standalone novel, which is The Wych Elm. I'd have to take down loads of books to get one of her Murder Squad. Is a possibility. Some of the most heart-wrenching literature that I've read by an Irish author. Oh my god, I read this in the days when I would bend over pages. I can't believe I bent over a page. Look, the page has been bent over. Oh, you can't see it. It's been bent over. Can't believe I did that. Terrible. But pick this up in a supermarket. The thing about December, yeah, it's gut-wrenching. Donal knows how to write his characters, so maybe something by our Donal. Somebody who is technically not Irish, but she's of Irish descent, and because her family is so Irish, all her characters, well, not all her characters, a lot of her characters are Irish, and she based her first novel in a fictional town in Ireland. It's Jess Kidd, so she writes a mixture of mystery, whodunit, sort of Agatha Christie style-ish, but twisted with a lot of magical realism. So she's unique in herself. She's one of my favourite authors. She's one of the few author-by authors I have. Niall Williams, this one is Letters of Love, which I think I've shown recently. I can't remember which video I showed in recently, but if you like, let's see, we'll just see at the start of a chapter here. So many chapters. Hopefully I fast forward to that bit. Okay, so this is Niall Williams, Four Letters of Love. This is the kind of prose you can expect, and this is the beginning of any chapter will begin like this. I don't know why I kept flicking there, but anyway. After my mother died, thick drapes of silence were drawn inside our house. For 6 months of winter my father stayed at home, and in the time spoke barely 10 words. He became a thinner version of himself, fine and flake-like, with only the incandescent brilliance of his eyes betraying the presence of any feelings at all. He paced the glaring, brightening, darkening fury of his feelings through the empty rooms of the house, in such ways as I grew to interpret anger, bitterness, and failure from the sounds of his shoeless feet on the bare floors. He did not speak about my mother or the manner of her death. As far as I knew, he did not paint. I began to think that the episode of our life had ended, that this had been some satanic prompting that maddened him into going away often and long enough until at last, without kicking or screaming, love sank into the madness and died. So that's how his prose sounds, and that's him describing love. So this is 4 Letters Love, which is I recommend as an alternative to the classic romance fiction. Right. Charlotte Riddell, if you like Victorian literature, she wrote a lot of novels. It's easier to get your hands on some of her ghost stories. Ghost stories tend to be there's a ghost in the house and they can't rent the house or live in the house, and somebody has to solve why the ghost is there. The more classic kind of Victorian novels would be a lot of people who have jobs, a lot of working women, usually authors like herself. People who need money is a lot of a big theme in her books, and having to work for money and not waste it, because it sort of reflects her own life. But Victorian literature, written by an Irish author, incidentally, looking for a challenge before you were born. I don't think many people were born when she was writing. If so, wow, you reached an old age. This is young adult fantasy, I suppose. Kind of like the Hunger Games. In this case, young teenagers are taken and they have to fight the scythe, and if they don't fight the scythe and win the scythe, they're going to die. And they, so the scythe is an Irish legend. So it is based on Irish legend. This is the first of his books. So it's Peadar ó Griffin. The Call. So it's his first book. So if you're like young adult, you kind of like the Hunger Games, if you like to learn more about the legend of the scythe through fiction, recommend it. Interested in Irish history, a piece that was written at a very important time. This is written in the years coming up to 1916, so not about the rising against the British, but really why the rising occurred, and about the strikes and the lockouts. James Plunket, Strumpet City. It describes Dublin very well. It was one of the poorest cities in the world as a result of British rule. Well, that's going to be the theme of that book. And last but not least, I forgot. I'm going to get you another book. Hold on. Okay, slightly different angle, I know. Filmed, and then we had the Circle Blue. We had no lights, and it's definitely the Circle Blue, and it's that light there that's doing it. So it's probably too high a watt bulb in that. So we better be quick before we set the house on fire. Okay, second last book, John Boyne's A Ladder to the Sky. John Boyne is quite well known, especially with Heart's Invisible Furies. Also the Boy in the Striped Pyjamas. This is the more recent book that at least I have, so I think it's his most recent book. It's big characters, huge narratives, not always realistic, especially in Heart's Invisible Furies. To anybody Irish, I just say Nelson's Pillar, seriously dude. But so much fun, so big, really enjoy him, always 5 stars. Except for Boy in Striped Pyjamas, which is totally ridiculous, sorry. But he had a manager when he used to work in a bookstore called Waterstones in Dawson Street in Dublin. John did, and he had a manager, or an assistant manager, who became good friends with him, and actually lent him some money to help him write his first novel when he didn't have an income, because he was writing his first novel. Now he is promoting her first novel, and that is Anne Griffin, and When All Is Said. And if you only read one book on this list, if you're going to do this, read any book in this list, read this one first. When All Is Said is an amazing portrayal of a certain emotionally inept Irish man of a certain age. So it's Morris Hannigan, and it's 5 toasts, 5 people that he's there, that he said, it says on the cover that he's had a bar, and he's having these conversations in his head. He's addressing his son in his head, and yeah, it shows that though emotionally inept, that he still loved his wife and he loved his son, and the emotional damage that had been done to him as a child. It's just a great portrayal of character. One or two things again. The thing about the coin, you have to suspend disbelief a little bit, teeny tiny little bit coincidental, but amazingly enjoyable. The best book I've read so far this year, and yes, it is. Yeah, I know the author a little bit, only because she used to do the job I did up until a couple of months ago in Youth Work Ireland, so that's about it really. But I have been following her for a long time over social media. So yeah, so there's my selection of 11 books, because I was going to do 10, I couldn't do 10, so and I hope that if you're doing the Irish Readathon, you're having fun, and that that if you're going to read a book just particularly for the St. Patrick's Day, I know that when I was in Sydney, I used to get an extra day off around then. There was something to do with being Irish, it's just because they have such a big parade in Sydney for St. Patrick's Day. So I know other countries get days off as well, but in Ireland we'll have a long weekend, which is really needed. So I hope whatever you're reading, you're enjoying it, and until next time, bye.